there will be fury that it took him so long to go. Why was it such a drawn out, painful process?
Well, because I think that there was a lot of denial and there was also a lot of deception. So, I mean, from what we can piece together, there was probably a lot of denial within the Biden team about the impact that his physical and mental infirmities would have on the race once it became more known, and also denial about their ability to conceal all of that from voters. And along with that came a lot of deception where I mean, it's astonishing that the American public really was only confronted within the past month at that awful debate with the reality of Biden's, physical and mental condition. And so I think that we've got this problem now that the Democrats are going to have, even with the energy that's currently bursting out around Kamala Harris. His decision to hang in the race this long deprived Democrats of the opportunity to do a true primary over the winter where they could have vetted a bunch of different candidates, tried a bunch of different messages to start sorting out which could resonate. Now they've got to do that in very short order with the election right around the corner.
Who is to blame for that? Was it sort of just a totally a strategic misstep? Was it the Bidens actually saying, no, we want to cling on to and repress sort of other people coming up in the party?
I think part of the big problem the Democrats are going to have in this election is that everyone is sort of to blame for it. So, I mean, certainly there's a lot of blame within the inner circle in the White House and Joe Biden's family for encouraging him to run, for maintaining the fiction that he could run successfully given his condition. And then there's a lot of blame within the White House for all of the people who undertook a lot of efforts to keep him as much as possible out of the public eye so that people
Mm.
wouldn't see what was going on. And then you also have these reports of a lot of Democratic lawmakers over the past few years and other officials who were becoming concerned, but for whatever reason didn't speak up. I mean, the only member of Congress willing to speak up when it would have mattered was Dean Phillips, a Democrat from Minnesota, who tried to run against Biden in a primary. And that effort got suppressed. And Phillips said at the time that he was concerned about Biden's age and ability to serve for a full second term. But that all got memory hold.
So the spotlight is now on the Canadian born Vice President, Kamala Harris, who's had the endorsement of Joe Biden. What do you make of her? What do Americans make of her? Because what we hear from her poll ratings is her popularity is at times, pretty rock bottom.
Well, so she's younger, and that's going to be an advantage, especially in a race against Donald Trump, who, let us not forget, is getting on in years himself. And I think that there will be more energy, and Democrats will be energized now that they have this Biden situation behind them and are very motivated to vote against Trump. But I think that the problem that they've got is that Harris is very saddled with Biden's record. And remember, it isn't just Biden's age and infirmity that's been a problem for him politically. It's also the record of inflation, the chaos at America's southern border, rising tide of disorder around the world. And she's going to have to own and campaign on that record. And then she potentially has some political liabilities. Remember, when she ran for president in 2020, she didn't even make it to the first primary because something was going awry with her political acumen. Or with her lack of popularity in that race, and so she's going to have to figure out how to overcome some of those negatives.
What about some of her strengths? I mean, her position on women's reproductive rights could be a real dividing line that changes this campaign.
Yes, I mean, I think that she is certainly going to be more adept than Biden was at hammering home some of those issues like abortion, and various progressive issues that might be energizing for Democrats and that might give them an edge in some of these swing states. But again, I mean, you have to remember this was always going to be a pretty close election. The country is very divided. There's sort of potentially limited room for her to grow, and she's very unpopular partly because she is saddled with the Biden record. So I think that there are a lot of negatives for her to try to overcome, and still a lot of work to do to figure out how to fully leverage some of those positives that we were talking about, and very little time to do it.
Joseph, thank you. Joseph Sternberg, Wall Street Journal political economic columnist. Apologies. I
Yeah,
finally
well
got it
done.
out there. Do you know, one of the things, Dom, is how awkward it is for the Democratic Party now that Biden has endorsed her if they ended up rowing back from that, and how complicated that could be.
Although the way the US system works is that the delegates who have pledged for Biden, those delegates are now free to change their allegiance. So it doesn't, they don't transfer straight from Biden to Harris. There could be. So there's still some way to go before Kamala Harris has necessarily got it.
Hannah Betts and Michael Binion are here. Hannah, I mean, can you imagine if you work for the Democrats, Lindy Lee there saying, I've got kind of two phases of my life, before the debate and after. I mean, Biden limped on, didn't he? It took a while to make that final decision.
Oh my goodness, thank Zeus. I mean, we are not in America. We are not working for their campaign, but I think everyone, whatever their political persuasion, will be relieved by this, and that COVID gave him an out, a kind of dignified out, and time to think, and that he's made the right decision. I mean, for me, for everyone, I think the moment wasn't the debate. Actually, it was the Zelensky-Putin moment where, you know, a head in hands car crash moment. And after that, people think Obama was influential in prompting this decision. I've also heard rumors that Nancy Pelosi actually got him on the phone with pollsters. The BBC was talking about this, and that perhaps she felt he wasn't being told necessarily how awful it was. So she actually got the pollsters on the phone and made them tell him.
You wonder why that machine didn't
Yeah.
kick in earlier.
Well, I mean, the trouble is there is sycophancy around a presidency, isn't there? I mean, when I was at Oxford, I met Clinton, and I thought, oh, I won't be starstruck. And it was Clinton and Hillary, and I was completely starstruck by them both. There is huge charisma. There is, you know,
There's an aura, isn't there?
yeah, and you know, he had that even where he was perceived to be a sort of, I was going to say a walking car crash, a sort of barely walking car crash. So no, I think there's a relief everywhere that this painful moment is over.
Michael Binion's here as well. Michael, what do you make of the endorsement then? Joe Biden says, actually, I think the baton should be handed to my VP.
Well, I think it's a statement of the obvious. I think it's quite clear, and has been clear for some time, that Biden would have to withdraw. And the problem has always been, could he endorse or would he endorse Kamala Harris when her ratings are almost as poor as his have been? But there really is no alternative now, and particularly passing over a woman and a woman of color at this stage would be disastrous.
What I mean, Barack Obama didn't endorse her. Why do you think there's sort of careful caution there?
Well, because her record, frankly, hasn't been very good as vice president. She's been very poor on the main task that was handed to her, which was controlling the border with Mexico, where huge numbers are still coming over. And she didn't visit Mexico when she should have done, just to see what was happening. She's also made a number of blunders and stumbles and hasn't seemed to really find her feet in the role. She's appeared a lot more assured in the recent months. But the result is that her ratings are still way down and among the worst for any vice president at any time.
Yeah, she sort of had this roller coaster of popularity, Hannah. Do you think she says she's ready for the fight. Is she going to be the right person who can sort of resurrect the Democratic Party?
Well, I think Elizabeth Warren makes a good point. What do you need when you've got a felon running against you? You need a prosecutor. And she had a reputation as a fierce prosecutor. And, you know, this is a black woman versus an orange man. I think she is looking increasingly confident. I think she does have name recognition. Whether or not that works in her favor is a question. But you know, Mike Murphy was on the radio a while ago saying, "Give me 4 months and $1 billion, and I'll make her into anything you want her to be." I mean, he did it for Schwarzenegger. I think a lot will ride on who she chooses as her VP. I like the look of Josh Shapiro, as many people do. I mean, he he gave the presidential speech, really, that people wanted Biden to give in the wake of the Trump assassination attempt. I'm writing about it today, in fact, when he talked about the death of Cory Comparatore and called him a girl dad. And he had that popular touch and that sort of graceful presidential feel. He also, he's got he would bring Pennsylvania, which they need. She's in California. California is not a problem for them, but Pennsylvania, they very much need someone to bring that. And Josh Shapiro, with his "Get Shit Done" motto, I think he's the one.
I'm just going to take a brief moment to say apologise for that language, but appreciate the sentiment that it's trying to convey, Hannah. Michael, is there a bit of a problem for Harris that she's so closely tied to Joe Biden, and she also, presumably didn't speak up soon enough to say there's going to be a problem, maybe because she was worried about being accused of, self-interest?
Well, I think that's perfectly fair. Yes, I think it would have been very odd if she had been the first to raise the dagger, say it's time for him to leave. I mean, that would have looked like pure betrayal. It would have looked like his closest associate turning on him in a very unseemly way. And I think she was quite right to show loyalty right until the very end. And that counts in her favor, actually. I mean, whether or not she quietly advised him to go, we don't know. I think even that would have seemed a bit inappropriate because it would have looked so much like her own ambition. But no, I think in this thing, she's behaved perfectly well and scrupulously and fairly. And I think that will count in her honor. Maybe she will find her feet and her voice and will be a forceful character. As Hannah says, a lot rides on whom she picks as her running mate.
Michael, do you think Trump's nervous? This could be something that really, if they play it right and if they're strategic, accelerates the Democratic campaign.
It could, but Trump is so far ahead now. I think he is the one making the pace. I think it's going to be a huge catch-up for the Democrats, even to get as close as he is to the winning line. I think he has the momentum. He has all the name recognition and all that. The Democrats have got a tough job in only 4 weeks to settle on the new person and then prepare for an election in only, 4 months' time in November. And that's going to be a big task. And I think however quickly the new person is anointed and paraded around the country, it's still going to be difficult to get the momentum behind them that Trump already has.
And particularly the momentum that Trump's had in just the last 10 days. I mean, it's been such a fiercely changeable time in American politics.